Let's talk about the pros and cons of gummies. This is Eddie with a Mindful Emergence with yet another video on how to use cannabis safely, effectively, and for specific applications that you might have. So there are a lot of pros, a lot of cons. Gummies are incredibly popular, but let's talk about the advantages and the disadvantages. Okay, we'll start with the pros. The first one, and I think the biggest one, and it's substantial, is the fact that you're not inhaling anything. There's no smoke, there's no vapor going into your lungs. And we all know that it's better if we're not putting that stuff in our lungs. Now, there are ways to mitigate any damage by smoking, certainly by using pipes or other devices that have filtration. And there are a number of them on the market. And I've actually done videos on a couple, and I've got a couple more videos coming up pretty soon that also talk about ways to smoke a little bit more safely. Okay. And obviously, the best way to take in flower in terms of our throat and our lungs is dry vaping flower. I'm not talking about the vape cartridges you get that sometimes have a lot of crap in them. I'm talking about the vaporizers. All right. So if you use gummies, though, you're not putting anything in your body, any smoke, any vapor at all. Big advantage. Another one that's really great is there's no smell. They're very discreet. You can use them anywhere. You could be in a board meeting at a Fortune 500 company and sit there and pop one of them suckers in your mouth. Nobody knows that you're going to get high, right? So they're great in that way. All right. And, a lot of people are in a position where they find it difficult to smoke because they don't want to smoke in their home. And to go outside is problematic for various reasons, whether it's weather or the type of situation they live in. So, taking a gummy, you don't have to go outside, right? So, it's much easier in that way. So another factor is there's no cleanup. So when I use pipes, I clean them every single day. I'm absolutely vigilant with alcohol and soap and water. Whatever it is I'm using, I clean it regularly. You take a gummy, there's no cleanup. That's kind of nice. All right. Another one is that you can do very precise dosing. For example, and I'm going to talk about this product a little bit more in a minute, but this is a Delta 8 THC gummy that I got from a local company called Franny's Pharmacy. It's 25 milligram Delta 8 THC. Now, we also get Delta 9 from them. This happens to be one that Margaret uses. She likes the Delta 8 because she's so sensitive. The Delta 9s have a tendency to be a little bit too intense for her. So, this shows exactly what you're getting. Well, if you roll up a joint, do you know how much THC, how much Delta 9 or whatever it is you're getting? No, you don't. So you can do very precise measuring that way. And you can also um, get particular gummies for very specific therapeutic goals. For example, there's a company called Fire Tree, and I'm going to put links to both of these local companies, both Franny's and Fire Tree, in the description because I've used both of them. I can vouch for both of them. Neither one of them are paying me any money to do this, okay? I'm just suggesting it because I like their product and I want to be able to provide information to you that you can use. And they both sell online. So depending on what state you're in and the legality of that situation, you can actually order these products from them. But actually, both Franny's and Firetree, they have products that are very specific for unique needs. For example, you can get a gummy that's got CBD and CBN. Well, if you know your cannabinoids, you know that would be good for sleep. Or you can get a gummy that's got CBD and CBG, which is very good for pain management. So they can isolate these particular cannabinoids, put them in the gummies for specific needs, right? Certainly when you buy flour, all right, you can look at the terpene profile, but when you pull up the COA, you're going to find out overwhelmingly that there's very seldom a whole lot of CBD, CBG, CBN in there because the growers are trying to shoot for those high THC numbers, and there may not be much room left in there for anything else besides the THC. So, that's one thing about these gummies that you can target them for specific needs. And most of the seniors that I know that use cannabis for sleep use gummies, okay, for that specific reason. All right. So, also, one of the things about gummies is you can get more of a body high. All right. And also, there's a longer lasting effect with gummies than typically with smoking. Typically, if you smoke or vape, it's not that good 4 or 5 hours later, but a lot of times gummies, you're still feeling it quite a bit that far into after taking it. Okay. So, but the thing about the gummies also is that because your body metabolizes and breaks it down through the digestive system, you tend to have more of a body high. So, for example, if I want to use some cannabis before I go to a yoga class, which I really like moving in an intentional way like that with cannabis, a gummy is great because, first of all, it lasts longer. And second of all, it just gives me more of a sensation somatically in my body, which is what I'm really looking for. So, those are some advantages to using gummies. Let's talk about the disadvantages. Well, of course, the big one is you have to wait for it to kick in. If you smoke or vape, it's just in a matter of a couple of minutes or maybe a little bit longer, and you're already feeling it. But with a gummy, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, who knows? And that's part of the problem. You don't know exactly when it's going to kick in. Another thing is that overconsumption can really create a problem. Now, this particular product, which I'm going to talk more about, this is a gummy from some company called DBG, and each gummy is 100 milligrams. 100 milligrams. So let's take somebody who doesn't really know their tolerance level very well, and they get a hold of this, and they pop one of these suckers in their mouth, and about an hour later, or maybe 45 minutes later, they're going, gee, I don't feel that much. And then they take another one. And then about an hour and a half later, you go in there and you find them curled up in a corner in a fetal position, moaning. You know, that's probably not going to happen if you're taking a puff off a joint. So, overconsumption can really lead to some severe side effects. And we've all heard countless stories of people ingesting too much with gummies. It's a real problem. Another problem is the ingredients. And I talk about this all the time. Most gummies that I've seen out there have nasty ingredients. I told a story in another video. There was a dispensary that opened not too far from us, and Margaret and I stopped in, and they had a giveaway. They had little individual packets of a Delta 9 and also Delta 8. It's freebie. So I said, sure. So I took Delta 9. Margaret took the Delta 8. We left, and she was driving. So I'm in the car. We're coming home, and I'm looking at the packet, and I'm looking at all the ingredients. And I said to her, honey, when we get home, I'm throwing this shit out. We're not putting this in our bodies. Okay. Let me just give you an example between two different gummies. So this is Franny's Pharmacy. This is a local company. I know the owner, and all their stuff is super clean. All right. So I'm going to read some of the ingredients off of this. All right. Cane sugar, water, brown rice, syrup, gelatin, natural raspberry flavor, natural spirulina extract color, citric acid, industrial hemp distillate, refined coconut oil. Not bad, right? All right, here's this DBG. And by the way, just looking at it, it's all yellow. And if you look at the bottom, there's all this sugar down at the bottom. Let's look at these ingredients. Okay, this has got, besides the Delta 8, it's got granulated sugar, liquid glucose, more sugar, water, gelatin, food grade food grade flavoring, yellow dye number 5. Which one do you want to put in your body? Hmm? So you really got to, check the ingredients and make sure that it's not nasty. And the gummies that Firetree has, they're awesome, man. They're so clean. They might be even He might be even stricter than Franny on his products. You should go to their websites, take a look, and you'll see what I mean. So that's one of the problems with gummies, nasty ingredients. Another one is you have limited access to terpene profile information. So, I'm harping on terpenes all the time. There was a comment in one of the videos that I loved, and I don't have it exactly right, but it was something like THC drives the car, but the terpenes steer it. Terpenes have a tremendous impact on the effect that this plant has on us. And if you buy flower to ingest, you can find out what the terpenes are. It may not be on the COA, all right? A lot of times it's not listed on that. They got all the cannabinoids, but not the terpene profile. But you can go to Leafly or investigate in some ways like this. And if you pull up any of these strains on Leafly, it'll say like, okay, this has got limonene, pinene, caryophyllene, or it's got myrcene, and it says right on there what the terpenes are. But on gummies, you can't get any information. You're not going to do any work with terpenes. It's just not. I haven't seen any gummies where you can do that. Another thing you can't do, which I do all the time, and I know some of you do because you say this in the comments, is combining strains. So sometimes I smoke or vape a specific strain, especially if it's a new one that I'm checking out. All right. But most of the time, I'm stacking them, I'm combining them. And one of my favorite things to do is to take a really strong sativa and then put in something that's more of a balanced hybrid. And somehow it just expands the whole experience really, really nicely for me. And sometimes I'll combine a whole bunch of different strains if I want a huge effect, if I'm going to use cannabis as a psychedelic. You're thinking, cannabis is a psychedelic? Yeah, I got a video on that. Go ahead and check it out. Let me tell you, you can do it. But what you're doing is you're combining a whole lot of different strains to get that entourage effect. It's called an alchemy blend. So again, gummies, you can't do that. Another thing about gummies is we're missing the whole romance that comes with the process of partaking. All of us most all of us anyway, have had experience. You get together with friends, you roll the joint, or maybe you've got a bong or something, and you sit around and you smoke together. That's not quite the same as passing a bag of gummies around and sitting around for 45 minutes and an hour and waiting to see what's going to happen. It's not the same. So that's a big piece that's missing with gummies, if that's important to you. And the last one that I can think of, as terms of a negative with gummies, is that there is a risk of accidental ingestion by either children or pets. May not affect you. It doesn't affect us. I've got a cat, but I store it in a place she can't get to, and she wouldn't eat one of the gummies either. But I'm sure those of you who have dogs, you know how dogs are, right? Ooh, they're just going to lap that sucker up. And obviously, children, oh boy, that looks cute. Let me pop down a couple of those. This tastes good. Next thing you know, you're taking them to ER. So it's probably not a big problem for many, but when it is a problem, it is a big problem. Okay. So you don't want to take your kid to ER and get their stomach pumped. So those are the pros, and those are the cons. So I would like your comments. A lot of you guys are smarter than me. I'm not an expert on this, okay? So if you have stuff that you want to add to this in the comments, I'd love to hear them. I'm here to learn just as many of you are. And then like I said, I put in the description, I listed what I just shared with you, plus links to both of the websites of both of those companies. So you can go in and take a look. And obviously you can order, but at least you can get an idea of what these companies are providing with their gummies. So maybe it'll give you an idea of what to shoot for. Next time you go in a dispensary and ask for a gummy and they hand it across the counter, stop and take a look what's in it. All right. It's to your benefit to do that. So anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Love it when you give us a thumbs up. We're now over 20,000 subscribers, which for me is a big deal. You know, last summer I had 1,000. Okay. So I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I hope you're learning. I certainly am, and I'm enjoying the conversation that we're all sharing.